Last weekend, leaders of the world's most important advanced and emerging economies met in New Delhi for the annual summit of the Group of 20. The meeting occurred at a pivotal juncture, just a few days after the BRICS summit and just before the annual opening of the UN General Assembly in New York. For Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the meeting was a platform to showcase India's arrival as a major power in the global scene. More generally, the summit offered a view on the fast-changing global order and the need to give developing countries a greater voice in global governance to create a more inclusive and equitable world. The meeting had 4 immediate takeaways. First, the global South took center stage. Throughout India's chairmanship of the G20, Modi has styled himself as the champion of the developing world, calling for an overhaul of global institutions that many lower and middle income countries see as hopelessly stacked against them. This message fell on receptive ears. Many developing nations regard their rich world counterparts as totally indifferent to their needs, whether the topic is vaccine access, debt forgiveness, or climate financing. Modi gave voice to their grievances, which were reflected in the final declaration. This is only the second of 4 straight G20 summits that are going to be held in the developing world, so expect to hear more on this theme as the action shifts to Brazil and then to South Africa. Second, Africa has joined the party. With Modi's strong encouragement and with the support of the United States, the summit approved the admission of the African Union as a full member of the G20, on a par with the European Union. This addition will correct one of the group's biggest shortcomings, the failure to include a single African voice besides South Africa. It's also consistent with the principle of nothing about you without you. That is, international organizations that spend so much of their agenda addressing issues relevant to Africa must incorporate perspectives from the continent itself in the interest of genuine partnership. Third, Ukraine got short shrift. To the immense frustration of the West, many low and middle income countries have resisted choosing sides in the confrontation that pits the West against Russia and China, including the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This pattern persisted at the summit. The consensus document at the end of the event declared the group's opposition to unilateral seizures of territory, but unlike last year's, did not explicitly condemn Moscow. This split the difference posture is nothing new to India, of course, which has adopted a policy of fence-sitting non-alignment dating back to the era of Nehru. It also reflects New Delhi's continued interest in obtaining certain goods from Russia, not least weapons and oil. Fourth, China's absence opened the door for India and also for the United States. Xi Jinping's decision not to attend the summit was clearly a calculated snub of Modi, but it backfired. It provided the Indian leader with an opportunity to depict himself and his own country as the natural bridge between North and South, as well as a potential mediator between East and West. For decades, China has claimed to speak for the developing and anti-colonial world, but it is also clearly seeking to overturn rather than merely reform the global order. India, by contrast, seems prepared to seize the mantle of a global bridge builder, both within the G20 and beyond. The competition for the leadership of the global South, in other words, is afoot. Xi's absence also proved useful to President Biden. It allowed him to present the United States as the real champion of global development, including announcing a major transportation infrastructure project helping to link India and Saudi Arabia. It also gave him a platform to contrast the transparent Western approach to development cooperation with China's own troubled Belt and Road Initiative, which has left too many supposed beneficiaries mired in debt and racked by corruption. If there was a disappointing aspect of the G20 summit, it was the lack of progress on climate. The leaders called for a tripling of renewable energy capacity by 2030, but they didn't offer any plans on how they would get there. They also declared that the world would need $4 trillion a year to achieve a clean energy transition, but they did not outline a pathway to achieve it. Equally disappointing, the G20 offered no assurances on phasing down its own fossil fuel subsidies, which it has long promised, but which in fact have quadrupled since 2021. Progress on these and other fronts will await the pivotal 28th Climate Conference in Dubai to be held later this year.